They are the creative class, the most sought-after demographic of our time. They are single professionals, well-heeled childless couples, empty nesters, and college students. All of them occupy much of the urban space once filled by families, and increasingly, cities are evolving into playgrounds for the rich, traps for the poor, and way stations for the ambitious young en route to eventually less congested places to start families. As someone who lives in this central neighborhood, who owns a home in the central neighborhood, affordable, middle-class, family-oriented, owner-occupied housing is a priority for me, and it should be a priority for this city. I don't believe Holland is sustainable going after transient creatives. The basic custom of a city was a commitment to familialism. That changed in the 60s and 70s. Middle-class families started leaving our cities and our neighborhoods deteriorated. In their place came an abundance of rental housing with lots of temporary residents who didn't share the same values as the families they replaced. It's this encroachment that makes single-family, owner-occupied homes unaffordable in Holland. Because once a family goes rental, especially with 6 residents, it becomes what I've heard described as a cash cow. That's from both sides. It means that property is unlikely to really ever go back to being a single-family home.
My name is Joel Dye. I'm the Community Development Coordinator for the City of Holland. As part of my job, I staff the Neighborhood Improvement Committee. I want to take a second here and just highlight they're looking to encourage investment and protect investment. Encourage investment by owner-occupied homes, and then protect that investment of the owner-occupied homes. This is a statement that we generated this morning in our office, and it's really something, it's a theme, it's a common theme on how we approach, our work on the 3rd floor in the planning department. In the City of Holland, one component we have for ensuring that the housing stock is properly maintained and safe is our rental inspection program.
I wouldn't say that the focus of the Neighborhood Improvement Committee is to annihilate all renters, really. I think they are just trying to recommend a healthy balance throughout the city, that it's not going to be total renters. Nothing wrong with renters.
But I think if you start talking about 35 to 40%, and in some blocks or areas higher, where that rental percentage gets out of whack to a point that any urban planner or any city council would step back and say, that is not healthy. How do we make sure that our central city doesn't look like Flint?
There was a statement made that somehow we're trying to expel all renters from the City of Holland or something along those lines. That is categorically false. What is going on here is we have a growing issue of rental units in some of our most delicate neighborhoods. And partially it's driven by the economy, partially it's driven by the fact that once there is a preponderance of rentals in a particular area, that's what tends to continue. All right. Now, you'll note, as you look in this area, that the central part of the city has the highest concentration, highest property numbers that tend to have rental units associated with them. I think that comes as not a surprise to any of us, because frankly, we all understand that these are the oldest houses in town, the oldest houses in the area, the cheapest houses in the area, and quite frankly, they're the spots where it's easier to buy and easier to find the ability to rent them. Where do we have the highest density of weed violations in the City of Holland? That same area with the highest amount of rental units. Where do we have the highest numbers of inoperable vehicle complaints? The same part of the city. Where do we have the highest density of complaints regarding garbage violations? In that same part of the city. Where do we have the highest amount of complaints about density of housing code violations? That same part of the city. In essence, where do we have all sorts of service calls happening in high concentrations? The red one there is the police station, by the way, so that is pretty good indication as to why that's red. But it's, again, in that similar part of the city. So the point I'm trying to make is not that we're saying renters are of necessity bad or rentals are of necessity bad, but what we have here in our context, in our particular setting, is a situation where a high concentration of rental units tends to statistically have other adverse things that accompany it.
Good evening. I'm David Vanderslice. I live in Laketown Township, and I own 2 rental units in the city of Holland. And I am appalled at what I'm hearing tonight. These are some of the most discriminatory statements I've ever heard coming from a neighborhood improvement committee that we do not want rental units anymore. I would have a hard time going to my rental units where there's a 60-year-old retired guy and a 40-year-old single guy and telling them they are not the desired people the city of Holland wants in their neighborhoods. They cannot be good neighbors.
I'm Len Prolesnik, 284 and a half Fairbanks Avenue. It's discriminatory to say that we don't want renters, get out of here, don't come in here, you're not as nice as the rest of us. Generally, renters are the lower economic class of the city, and maybe that's why some people don't like them. I think that's pretty sad.
So I hope you take into consideration the fact that you will have on real people, not just investors, people that live in this community, have invested in this community, put a lot of money into it to rehabilitate homes. Yes, it's a rental, but it has value, and the reason it's there is because there's a market for it, not because we're forcing people to rent. There is a market for it.